I don't know about y'all, but for the longest time, the intersection of dance and technology was a really lonely one, and I'm grateful that that is no longer the case. So please feel free to come on down to your seats. Yes, wow, the quietude happened fast. So I will just prepare for what comes next. So welcome back. Next up, we are going to hear from two artists whose engagement with emerging technologies fascinatingly works through, against, and beyond questions of embodiment and the stakes for our motion captured. It is my pleasure to introduce our next lightning talk speaker, LaJuné McMillian. LaJuné, give a woo. So, I mean, I've still got a couple words to talk about. Yeah, I love a woo. So LaJuné is a phenomenal new media artist and creative technologist, creating work that integrates performance, extended reality, and physical computing. Give it up for LaJuné.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'll just get to it. I wanted to talk to you about a project that I've been working on, or I guess like a project series I've been working on called The Portal's Keeper, which I actually had the privilege to develop part of here at Jacob's Pillow 2 years ago over there in that building over there. So yeah, I'm really excited to share the development of the project. But yeah, basically, I started this work by actually starting with a Black Movement Library project. And so with Black Movement Library, just to give you a short description, it is a library for Black artists, Black technologists, and archivists to come together to basically create a space for us to learn about our movements, our bodies, and our culture. But then also a space for us to convene and to share space together. And so from there, basically, I created a movement portrait series, which essentially are these different motion capture driven projects. And essentially, you learn about the performers who integrate their movements into the library. And so I got to do a first performance of this movement portraits project at the Brooklyn Public Library in 2021. And essentially, this is just a short snippet of that.
I realized dance is not only about me, like it's literally driven by community.
I think spirit, I think energy.
So you'll notice that all of the dancers are wearing these glowing suits, and essentially those suits are perception neuron suits. And those suits allow me to take their movement and turn them into these very vibrant worlds that also integrate their avatars. And so essentially from there, and just having this experience of seeing my work on such a large stage, I began to think about my work as a portal. One of the early conversations that I had when making this work was this idea of having the library as a portal opened onto the Brooklyn Public Library. And then with that idea, I was like, okay, if I am opening these portals to these Black liberated realities, what would it then mean for me to, what basically comes into that work? What comes into that labor of being a portal's keeper? So, and then also the following year, I was able to turn it into a midnight moment. And I'll actually pause it there for time. But basically I did start this work as a student. Oh, thanks. Okay. But I did start a lot of this work during my time as a student at NYU Tandon's Integrated Digital Media program. There I was just very excited to learn about everything having to do with technology, from motion capture to avatars to physical computing. But even though I got the chance to do that there, I actually didn't graduate. And so a lot of my access to a lot of these tools was drastically limited because of that. And so a lot of my work with working with Black Movement Library and my work now basically is about what it means to actually have access to these tools and spaces. So that brings me to this project, The Portal's Keeper, which follows the journey of my inner child diving into an alternate reality through meditation and prayer. Particles radiate from my young avatar, an abstract representation of the energy we access and emit when we are able to move through the world freely. The piece is part of a larger body of work, including performances, public art, and XR installations exploring themes of embodiment, inner child healing, spirituality, and liberation. I wanted to start with also one of the prayers, and so I invite everyone to close their eyes and as I take you on this journey. But take a deep breath and step with me into the unknown. From this moment into the next, moment of peace, moment of nourishment, moment of overwhelming love, care, and joy, moment of abundance. What is necessary of us to release to make room for this moment? And what is necessary for us to hold on to this moment? To carry this gift into the next lifetime, to our predecessors, to honor our ancestors who gave us this gift of resilience. What is necessary of us to hold ourselves accountable to that gift? What must be broken to reveal what is sacred, and what must be destroyed to reveal what is true? Self-determination and self-actualization are not only hopeful destinations, but are embedded in our ways of existence. So take a step with me and commit to the unknown, the unseen, and let us take this moment to leave behind anything that does not serve our purpose. For in the morning, we will rise up again. So let us be grateful for our breath, for our lives, for our bodies, for each other. For we are the portal's keepers. We must protect our dreams, for they are real, they are enough, they are enough. May we release our fear and step into courage. May we release our uncertainty and step into confidence. We are enough, we are whole, we are worthy. And now we can all come back. Thank you. Cool. So our transitions into the portal, I think for me, collectively and individually, I wanted to basically use this as an opportunity to transition into that space. It's one thing to open a portal to a Black liberated reality, but what does it actually mean to step through it? What processes must we build and stick to and commit to, both individually and collectively, to be able to fully realize what this mission means to all of us? This is just like, I'll just show a very short animation, but this is basically part of one of the pieces. And all of the sound here we developed here too, so everything that you hear was developed here, which is really cool. That there, but that goes into like a 30-minute 30-minute video. The piece is both seen as a one-person performance, which this is actually at Onassis Foundation in New York, where I've developed a lot of this work too. And so essentially, like, that's me in the center. This is also a really great opportunity for me to also be in the performances. I think a lot of my earlier works, it was me working with performers, but now I am also integrating my own movement and journey into it as well. The piece is also a water ritual, and so essentially I invite the audience to write their prayers down on dissolvable paper, and then essentially midway through the performance, I place all of the prayers into the bowl of water, and we send the prayers to spirit. Oh, yes, this is from the Jacob's Pillow performance. And really quick, what was beautiful about this experience too is that I invited all of my collaborators to write what it means for them to transition into a Black liberated reality. And so we heard each person say what a Black liberated reality means to them, and we performed to it. And then we also took the calibration of the motion capture sensors and turned it into its own ritual experience. Okay, then I'll just pause there. And then we actually got to show it at the Guggenheim very recently in May for the YCC party. I was the collaborating artist there. Skip that one. But yeah, very quickly, it is also a public arts project. So the portal has opened on various different buildings across the U.S. This is the Denver Clock Tower. This is the Mandeville Art Gallery. And then this is actually from my Fulton Street Station takeover in New York City. So you'll sort of see like all of the different screens. It's a 50-channel video installation. And then last thing, I also had this as a non-interactive installation, which premiered at the Frisk Museum in Nashville in September of 2024. Essentially, in the center, there is a portal that is actually like covered with yaki hair. And so I actually took one of my first sculpture classes, and we had to work with a physical element. And so I was really interested in synthetic hair, synthetic braiding hair, and also just looking at the history. And actually, like even though it is like not made with yaks, it actually was created with yaks like in the beginning. And so I found it also interesting that according to Buddhism, the yak's head, eyes, intestines, hairs, hooves, and heart were transformed into the sun, the moon, the stars, the rivers, the lakes, the forests, and the mountains. The yak's bones represents its spirit and are a symbol of purity, strength, and courage. And so for me, like just using that hair in that way just represents how the yak is in itself a portal. And so the portal's keeper also shows how our hair, when used for protective styles, has provided us as an aid to a different reality in that way. And then also I was able to collect over 1,300 prayers from different visitors that were able to come to see the experience so that I can create my first artificial intelligence project. And so essentially I had this residency with EY, and we've been developing chatbots driven by the different prayers. And I'm really excited because I'm also going to develop all of the different characters. So I have child, spirit, and myself. I'm developing them too as AI reactive chatbots that you can interact with as you go through the experience. So you'll be able to hear the prayers, then you'll also be able to speak to each character as well. Yeah. Oh yeah, and really quickly, I'm trying to build a hydroponic system too, because I was like, oh, that would be so cool. I'm collecting these prayers. Let me actually build a hydroponic system. Anyway, thank you. If you yeah, okay, I'm gonna go. Great. Yeah, thank
you. What a deep stack of hydroponic kickassery. LaJuné, thank you so much. Maybe one last woo and round of applause for LaJuné. Absolutely. So never a dull moment. So next up, we have Alexander Whitley. Now Pam wants me to take a moment to credit Alex for inspiring today's format. Alex produced the first ever Digital Body Festival in London last November that Pam attended. I think there was an isolated woo. I think we can be, let's give a woo for the, we can do that. Big woo energy today. So Alex, of course, leads an internationally acclaimed artist-led creative studio and has been redefining the boundaries of dance and performance for over a decade with pioneering work in digital technology. Please put your hands together, Alexander Whitley.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here, and thanks so much for that, Pam. It means an awful lot. I'm Alex. I'm a choreographer and artistic director of Alexander Whitley Dance Company. We're based in London, in the UK. We are a creative studio exploring the intersection of dance and digital technology, which we've been doing for over a decade. And I've had the pleasure of working with many amazing digital artists and practitioners, such as Memo, who's in the audience here, and Clem, performing next door. It's really amazing to see this community of artists come together, people who have been supporting each other, investing in each other's practices for so long, and it's great to see what that's arriving at. But our work extends across stage, screen, immersive, and interactive platforms. As is mentioned, I also launched the Digital Body Festival in November last year in London. This was a new event attempting to draw together what I sensed was emerging of a community of artists coming from a really broad range of backgrounds who were converging around a similar theme of this intersection of movement and technology. I've been really drawn to this space myself as a choreographer, but inspired by artists who are coming from very different backgrounds, bringing similar questions, ideas, and converging around the use of similar technologies. So it felt as though there was a real opportunity to capture that and show the connections and links between this work, and also to attempt to provide a platform for younger emerging artists to have their work seen and to really open up a conversation around what this territory is. Anyway, I want to talk a bit about why, as a choreographer, I'm interested in working with technology. I'm kind of preaching to the converted here, but I think it's worth going into this in a bit more detail. There's two main reasons I think that I'm kind of attracted to working with technology. The first one is I'm excited by and inspired by the creative possibilities that it introduces for dance, particularly technologies that center around movement. I'm also interested in working with technology as a way of exploring a contemporary human condition, which is obviously deeply enmeshed and impacted by digital technologies. And so, I'm really interested in how dance as an artistic form provides the basis through which we hold the physical and digital up against each other, and we can explore the relationships and negotiate the tensions that exist between these two concurrent forms of our experience. I'm also really interested in what it means to choreograph the co-presence of the physical and the digital, how these two things can interact, relate to each other, and share the stage on equal terms. But I think there are kind of three pillars around the affordances that digital technology introduced to dance. And my work is really centered on exploring this across the process, forms of participation in dance and in performance. Each technology comes with its own particular set of affordances and constraints, many constraints. And building a creative practice around the use of digital technology, for me, has largely been about developing an understanding of what these affordances are and where they can be most appropriately and effectively applied. Questions I often ask are, what can this technology do for dance that can't be done without it? Or does this technology have a justified place and serve an essential function in the outcome? If not, why use it? My aim is to ensure that technology is never being used as an added extra, but as a deeply integrated part of a choreographic methodology. I'm excited by the ways in which digital technology can amplify the knowledge and ideas held within choreographic practices and enable new forms of access to them. But while we explore what these technologies can do for dance, I think it's equally important that we ask what dance can do for these technologies. Our rich heritage and knowledge and creativity in movement as a dance community has so much to offer, this emerging field of spatial technologies. And in the sweet spot between the two, I think there's magic to be found. Yeah, so the ability to track movement, track and record human emotion in 3 dimensions and provide feedback in response to that movement. I've lost my page, sorry. To provide feedback to that movement in real time opens up a whole world of possibilities for creativity, engagement, and education in dance that I believe we're still only scratching the surface of. With these technologies, we can overcome the challenge of languaging embodied experience and communicate more directly through movement, establishing feedback loops of action and perception into which choreographic ideas are embedded and activating our primordial instincts for thinking in movement. So, with these technologies, I've just read that, haven't I? We can explore new modes of performance in which the boundaries between performer and spectator, proximity and presence, body and physical expression dissolve. We can explore new modes of physical and choreographic representation and experience the effect of human movement in new ways. We can develop assistive tools that work on our terms, spatially and in movement. We can enable access to knowledge, ideas, and experiences in movement that are otherwise confined to particular places and particular modes of practice. And we can engage in a diverse field of creativity forming around these emerging technologies in which ideas from traditionally distinct disciplines are overlapping and intermixing in fascinating new ways. But the reality of doing this is obviously a lot harder than said. Yeah, realizing the potential of this integration is fraught with challenges of cost and complexity. I've often learned the hard way by setting out with really high ambitions and hopes for what can be achieved and coming up against really serious barriers of getting there. Introducing technology into a choreographic practice brings a completely different set of constraints, of priorities, of needs. As has been mentioned many times by people this afternoon, it completely changes the creative process, and there's an awful lot of readjustment and resources that are needed to effectively integrate these technologies and realize the potentials that they introduce. So I want to kind of revert back to what I was mentioning earlier about the process, participation, and performance, and just talk through a few projects that we've been developing and working on over the last few years that touch upon these different areas. So I want to talk a bit about OTMO, which is a choreographic tool that we've been developing. As Clem mentioned earlier, she's been a really integral part of it. I realize I'm standing right in the middle of the way of the screen. Yeah, Clem de Beek has been one of the lead developers alongside Luca Biardo, a really long-term and trusted developer and collaborator. And OTMO started out as a question about how we could take the creative innovation we were putting into our stage productions or performance work and apply it to an education project. But from some early experiments and workshops, we realized just how difficult that is. Bringing VR headsets into a classroom is horrible. It was a mess. I think we had about 5 minutes of an hour-long workshop where there was actually productive work done. So we kind of went back to the drawing board and did a lot of research during COVID. We interviewed teachers from around the UK, dance teachers working in secondary schools, to find out what their pain points and challenges were in teaching dance in this setting, and to think about what we as a small independent dance company working with technology could do to address some of those challenges. We developed a few prototypes, and OTMO was the final outcome of that, which was really doing something quite obvious, which is creating a sequencing and editing platform for movement. Other art forms, other creative industries like film and music have long relied upon these kinds of tools and been revolutionized by them. The industries have been transformed by these technologies, but we don't yet have that for dance. So, and that's partly because obviously capturing movement is a more complicated process than capturing sound and images and moving images. But the technology is now becoming more readily available and affordable. So I think there's an opportunity to think about how we can create something that enables people to work with movement digitally, and specifically to do so on the basis of it being a very accessible piece of software. These kinds of things can be done in Unity and Unreal engines, these really amazing, sophisticated, complicated games engines, but they take years and years and years to get to grips with and to become an expert in. So our aim with OTMO was to really lower that barrier to access, to make it as straightforward and simple as possible to engage in digital creativity around movement. So I'll just talk you through some of the features of the software. It's a 3D creation space. It's a 3D environment in which you can really easily place characters, move them around, change their orientation and position, and explore different spatial and temporal relationships between sequences of movement and view them from multiple perspectives. There's an inbuilt content library that you can refer to, which is a long-term project. It's we've got movement from 3 or 4 different dance styles or disciplines at the moment, but there's huge potential there to build that out to incorporate as broad a range and as diverse a kind of background of movement styles for people to work from. There is a timeline feature in which you can then link together and sequence and ultimately choreograph the movement in the software. And it has a formation builder, so from a single phrase of movement, you can easily build out to larger formations and adjust spatial parameters within those formations, the radius between characters, the rotational offsets within the formations. So you can very quickly iterate on and see and experience the effect of these kinds of techniques that are the bread and butter of choreographers' work. We develop material and we quickly iterate and arrange it, but in a studio, it can take a lot of time to do that. I've been here many times, and I'm sure other choreographers in the room have been here before, where you have something that you think is a really great idea in mind. You spend hours and hours creating it only to discover that it's not nearly as interesting as you thought it was going to be. So for young people learning about choreography, to have a tool that enables them to perceive those outcomes, to pre-visualize and to understand more about where their interests lie, what these possibilities are, what the outcomes of these different kind of techniques are, is potentially a really valuable tool. And what we've been working on recently with the software is the ability to import custom content into it. So we've just achieved that recently in the latest build of the software, so you can now import your own motion capture files into it. You can import 3D characters, environments, music. So all of the basic elements of the software are fully customizable. And another important feature of the software is a customizable character. We have worked with a researcher from Goldsmiths University called Daniel Strutt, who Clem has also worked very closely with, around this customizable avatar. We were really keen to ensure that the software wasn't bringing in any of the exclusionary and discriminatory practices and tendencies that there are around digital embodiment and representations of bodies in these kinds of 3D spaces. So yeah, this character, you can adjust the shape and size of the body around different gender elements, as well as adjusting the color of the outfit and the skin tone of the character. So we hope that there's a feature there that enables anyone using the software to either see themselves or the dancers that they're working with within the software, or customize it to suit their particular interests. This is still very much a work in progress, and there's further research around including prosthetics within that avatar as well, and thinking about ways that differently able-bodied dancers and physical forms can be represented within it. How am I doing for time? Cool. OTMO is still a work in progress. We're on our third beta version of the software. It's available online at otmo.studio to download. We're really keen to work with dance institutions or other kinds of cultural institutions around its development and deployment. It's been quite a big undertaking for us as an independent company to develop. We have effectively started a software development company within our dance company, and that is, has been pretty challenging. Resourcing this and building a team around it has been challenged. So partnerships and opportunities to develop this within the community, because my hope is that it's something that is really an enabler for the dance community, a resource that can be of benefit, and to work together to think around the moral and ethical issues that come with it as well, because already we're starting, immediately in creating it, we're having to think about how the motion capture that we're recording, including in the library, is being how the dancers that are providing that are being rewarded for it. We're exploring the possibilities to introduce AI elements into it, to allow generative features, which creatively open up really exciting possibilities. But again, there are really important questions there around ownership and use of that data. So as well as being a tool and a resource for the community, I hope it's also a platform through which these ideas and issues that I think as an industry we need to be confronting can be explored, addressed, and hopefully implemented. Anyway, I want to move on to a couple of projects that I've been working on recently, which are based more around participation in dance. So, I think one of the things that really excited me about working with interactive technology right at the beginning, so it was back in 2008, 2009 that Memo and I started exploring the use of the Kinect motion tracking camera. Memo was doing amazingly sophisticated things in building a system that could do things with movement when you stand in front of a motion tracking camera. And I was really excited about what that meant in terms of amplifying, expanding, or taking movement ideas into other places. And originally we were thinking very much around how that works on stage in a kind of performance setting. But it's obviously apparent that this kind of technology introduces really exciting possibilities for activating the public to engage in movement. There's some really amazing examples of that in the exhibition next door. Future Rights is a VR project based on the Rite of Spring, where the premise is that a group of participants forms the sacrificial community that is, the kind of centerpiece of the Rite of Spring. And having made a few VR experiences in the past, working with interactivity, there were various issues that came up and kind of feedback that came from audiences around questions of, the first VR piece I made was a 360 video, where we had cameras kind of in the center of a studio, and I had to rework choreography from a stage production for that kind of 360 around experience. And that immediately introduced, some really different thoughts and challenges for me to think about how to make use of and get the most of the affordances of this three-dimensional space, and use the choreography to make people turn around and look and appreciate that they are in a 3D space. And then with other forms of interaction, there in successive versions of that VR experience we made, even though there were opportunities for the audience to interact and get responses from the environment around them, the choreography was never responding to them. The choreography remained the same. It was pre-recorded. So this question of how can you have an experience where the audience's participation in it, how their movement is instrumental in determining what the choreography is. How can we have responsive digital characters in an environment? So that's the premise of Future Rights. We're attempting to make an experience where using a range of different techniques, we are enabling the audience to control characters that are trained on a large database of movement. They're trained on the choreography of the Rite of Spring, and thereby enabling that community and a particular group of people that come together for the experience to determine a specific and unique outcome and to really feel the experience. So this is just an example of how hand tracking in a VR headset is controlling different groups of characters, trained using motion matching. It's a technique developed for video games to control these characters that have been trained on movement I choreographed. Whizzing on, this is another project we developed recently, or been working on recently through an initiative in East London where my studio is based. This was an initiative launched by University College London and Loughborough University London. We worked with a local community of Bhangra dancers and were similarly exploring how we could train a system on Bhangra dance movements to enable participants to have a physical interaction with this particular dance form. So it was a pilot project, and we worked as much as possible to co-create the experience with this particular community. London College of Fashion were another partner in the project, so we were thinking about the physical and stylistic representation of the digital characters as well. Yeah, I'm going to whiz on because there's one last thing I'd like to show you, which is our performance here on Wednesday night of OTMO Live, which is a production that we've been developing and iterating on for the last few years, which is exploring a range of different kind of technologies in performance. There's a system based on OTMO software that we have been developing as a real-time live virtual production tool to explore how we can take a motion capture feed from a live performer and build layers and layers and layers on top of it, iterating on and expanding the physical form and the way that movement is represented. And I think that's indicative of a need we have in the industry for creative tools that are industry specific. They're relevant to our needs as dancers, as choreographers, and that we're thinking about how we can embed ideas from within our practice into the technologies, as has been mentioned many times today. So this performance also involves having dancers performing together at distance. We're using a tool called the mocap streamer, which has been developed through Goldsmiths University as well, to explore how dancers can connect and perform and interact together from remote locations. So yeah, that's just a whistle stop of some of the work we've been doing over the last few years, but thanks so much. Pleasure to be here.
That was awesome. I'm going to stop myself from asking like a million follow-up questions. I'm going to ask one before we go on a tight 10-minute break. I'm super. You made a number of very generous invitations to others to participate or to collaborate, and I wonder if you can expand on that a little bit. For example, like, is the software open source? Is there like a quick code repo we can look at, or how would you like to invite participation from the intense interdisciplinary masses we have here in the room? Yeah.
Well, so the customizable avatar is open source. So that's available to download. I can share a link. It's on the Goldsmiths mocap streamer website. And yeah, we got so far in that project, but we're certainly keen to see where people can take what we started and how it can be used, but also developed. Yeah, I guess with OTMO and the development of this movement library, I think what LaJuné's doing with the Black Movement Library is really a kind of a nice parallel to what we've started with that, and thinking about how this technology affords a form of documentation. But then I think with OTMO we're thinking about how that can be accessed and used. Yeah, I will certainly invite conversation and I guess co-development, co-production opportunities for taking that forward.
Awesome. So we are going to take a tight 9-minute break. Alexander, thank you so much. Please, a round of applause for Alexander.